Out of more than 5,000 PC games released this year, these 10 receive the highest aggregated scores from both critics and gamers, presenting the 10 best PC games of 2023. Rank 10 is DREDGE. This is the first of many indie games that graced this year's list. DREDGE's weird concept piqued our curiosity that very first couch. Instead of reveling in its Lovecraftian twist, we got addicted to its satisfying gameplay loop of fishing and selling. There's a sense of adventure in every isle we explore, new lore and story to gather from the history of this aquatic void. It always reminds us of entities we can't fathom in the deep, yet despite all the horrors, we fish. And that's what DREDGE is all about. A lot of our users seem to agree with the fun of its daily grind. There's just so much to do in this nightmarish ocean blue. It receives a play score of 8.3. Another indie game is this mix of puzzle and an engaging narrative experience. Like the Talos Principle or The Witness, solving a gauntlet of brain teasers is Viewfinder's scope, and it works so well. The game's inventive way of using perspective to solve its mysteries is a great touch. Bending reality in your favor using a Polaroid camera keeps you guessing and it keeps you thinking, said Games Radar's Joe Donnelly, giving it a perfect score of 10. Even with the brainpower required to get from point A to point B, Viewfinder takes its time. It moves the story slowly without putting you under pressure. Surreal atmosphere and the protagonist's internal dialogue perfectly sets the calm feel needed to solve these challenges. It gets a play score of 8.8. There was a lot of hype surrounding Sea of Stars when it was announced 3 years ago. The stylistic retro look offers a burst of nostalgia from classic RPGs like Chrono Trigger, Breath of Fire, and Final Fantasy. These inspirations culminated into this wonderful title from a bygone era of gaming. Despite borrowing familiar elements from the shoulders of the giants, the quality of life improvements made the adventure bearable. It all leads to a smooth, consistently thrilling adventure with fun combat, all in a gorgeous and inviting world, said Game Informer. Sea of Stars has a play score of 8.9.
This transformation, it's remarkable.
This remake of the sci-fi survival horror games all out with its eldritch terrors. Dead Space Remake takes us back to the claustrophobic halls of the USG Ishimura and fills it with effective scares. After all, no one can hear you scream in space. Much of the praises it received came from its eerie atmosphere. Critics and gamers were amazed by its terrifying sound design. The derelict space station is infested with the necromorphs, and there's no way of telling where they're popping up next. Apart from all that, the addition of new story content adds layers to the Ishimura crew and Isaac Clarke himself. It's a fantastic remake that begs the question, will we be getting Dead Space 2 next? It gets a play score of 8.9.
Let's rock!
Hi-Fi Rush is a great example of an instant hit. Early this year, it was stealth-launched into Game Pass, and many players were surprised to find out that it's a really good game. If Devil May Cry and Cryptid the Necrodancer had a baby, it would be Hi-Fi Rush. Its unique concept of blending music and action together turned Hi-Fi Rush into an audio-visual experience. You're not just beating foes with your electric guitar, you're going in sync with the game's dynamic music. For a lot of players, it felt like a return to the classic PlayStation 2 games where it's all about having fun. For critics, it was because of its stylish presentation and responsive third-person combat. A play score of 9 out of 10. When From Software announced the next Armored Core game last year, everyone couldn't believe it. How on earth can they turn this niche mecha title into a massive hit? The answer was simple: make it easy to learn for everyone. With this change, even new players can hop in and get inside a robot in no time at all. Well, maybe except for Baltius. Armored Core 6 replicated this Souls-like feel without compromising the complex mechanisms on what the series is known for. There's still enough room for AC customizations before sorting the next big mission. With all that in place, the Fires of Rubicon gained mainstream attention and received a play score of 9. This has been a great year for video games, especially for indie titles. Dave the Diver is a sleeper hit that caught everyone in its oddly addictive grind. Once every streamer got their hands on the game, everyone was already tapped in Dave's dream to create the best sushi restaurant in the world. Dave the Diver doesn't take itself too seriously, which is why it's adored by players for its casual appeal. You can just sit back and relax as you go fishing and make the best sushi. With enough content to keep you going on for hours, Dave the Diver is a game that respects your time despite the hustle and bustle of its RPG elements. It has a play score of 9.2.
quickly.
Remedy Entertainment's troubled writer came clutching at her top 3. Alan Wake 2 is the sequel fans have been dying to play since 2010. It's 13 years of Alan trapped in this never-ending nightmare of the dark place. It was so good GameSpot gave it a perfect score, calling it a uniquely meta-narrative masterpiece. Like a full-blown David Lynch work, Alan Wake 2 isn't afraid to show off the weird side of storytelling. One minute you're running away from shadow people, the next you're singing and dancing with game director Sam Lake. No matter how much you imagine it, Alan Wake 2 is a game like no other with its surrealist narrative. It has a provisional play score of 9.2.
I'm gonna get you home safe.
Capcom's latest Resident Evil remake is their best yet. Leon's reimagined journey to save the president's daughter stayed true to its survival horror roots, all while improving on the original shortcomings with a responsive gameplay and well-written character arcs. Even with all its familiarity, there's still enough surprises to keep players engaged. It's not just playing through the same game from 2005. It's a completely revitalized experience that perfects Leon and Ashley's escape from this cultist freak show. The many 10 out of 10s from gamers and critics show that more players are still invested with RE titles, and they can't wait for more. It gets a play score of 9.3. We've all seen it coming from a mile away. Baldur's Gate 3 is the best PC game this year by a wide margin. It's a culmination of Larian Studios' dedication for the Dungeons & Dragons universe in almost a decade of development. Imagine the blood, sweat, and tears poured into this massive project. It was a universal success by the time it fully launched in August. New players were impressed with its massive RPG choices, which includes its complex turn-based combat and even dating sim elements. The veterans, however, were also satisfied with the game's constant support, adding in new scenarios and epilogues for our beloved cast of characters. Not every playthrough is the same, and that's already a huge plus for gamers. There's just nothing else like Baldur's Gate 3 in the current market right now. It's a complete video game experience from start to finish. It's the best of this year. It's also among the highest rated of more than 100,000 games we've tracked so far.